I think of it as like the Film 4 effect. If it was on Film 4, like at 9:30, I'm channel hopping, I'm going to finish watching it, I have no doubt.
You can't like look away from sort of the horrors it presents, and it presents it very early on, and it only gets kind of worse from there.
There's something about the sound. The sound in this is incredible. It's very tense. It's very bleak. I mean, we've already said it, bodies in the wall. Those would be the IMDb keywords, bodies in the walls, not a rom-com.
I would not be able to kind of switch it off, but I probably wouldn't want to switch it on in the first place.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Today I'm joined by George.
Hello.
Charlotte.
Ahoy.
And Helen.
Oh, hi.
And we're going to be talking about Sicario. Thank you as always to the mighty people for their mighty, mighty tunes, and to Ben from Rockwood Audio for editing this podcast. Please remember to head over to Spotify and Apple Podcasts to give us a 5-star rating and a glowing review. And also join in the conversation with us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod or on Instagram at FlixWatcher.
Hello, film fans. Welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Our guests today are Charlotte and George. Over to you, please, George, to say hello to our listeners and tell them a little bit more about who you are and what you do, please.
Hello, I am a freelance film writer. I love covering film festivals. This year did London and Venice. And yeah, I just really love movies.
Is that the best time is that the best time to go to Venice, when the film festival's on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in terms of crowds and heat, probably not. But if in terms of like spotting Adam Driver, your possibility of seeing him there, then I'd say yes, definitely.
It's much higher,
Sold.
I guess, when he's there
Yes.
at the festival than when he's not. Fair enough. Charlotte, who are you?
I am a teacher by day and writer of all things film, book, TV and theatre by night.
Wow. How do you find the time?
I don't quite know really. I used to joke about having a time turner, but that feels kind of like a crass joke these days.
That's a Harry Potter reference there, Helen.
I didn't get that. Yeah, sorry.
No. That's what I was explaining to you. But I'm genuinely impressed because teachers don't tend to have that much time to do stuff. So it must be that love for all these film and TV stuff that you've dedicated that much time, your spare time, to doing it.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of finding the balance, and they're the things I really love. So I get the chance to kind of pursue it in my free time. Yeah,
fair enough. We're talking today about Sicario, which is your choice, Charlotte. Can you tell us, first of all, why you chose it? And then I'll get the timer out. And you've got 60 seconds or less to give us the synopsis.
So why did I pick the film? I saw this film at the Cineworld O2. And I think for one thing, if you can remember where you saw a film, it's significant for some reason or another. And with this one, it was a packed audience. Every seat was filled. And I've never felt so tense during a film. The tension in the room kind of permeated. It was incredible. And it really stuck with me because I recommended it to a friend and I think I'd missold the film and she's never forgiven me.
What was their experience versus...
I was like, oh, it's a crime film and stuff. And then
Is it?
The opening sequence happened. And I was like, oh, dead bodies in the wall. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. You'd taken a friend who you hadn't seen it either.
Yeah, brand new. I just heard it was a crime film.
Sure.
You take them along thinking it's a buddy cop movie.
A rom-com, actually.
Well, Daniel Kaluuya and Emily Blunt's characters. Or
I'd watch that, yeah.
Let's do the timer. So you've got 60 seconds. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
To do the synopsis. And the timer starts now.
Emily Blunt plays Kate Mesa. She's really high up in the FBI. And after a huge case goes kind of right, kind of wrong, she comes to the attention of some people higher up who request that she comes and joins them on a mysterious secret mission involving Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro. And Benicio, apologies. And all is not as it seems. She gets more and more immersed in this world far beyond her control.
Very nice.
Fair enough. Helen, have you seen this before?
I have seen this before. I saw it in Burton. No, where did I see it? I haven't seen it then. Where did I see it? I have seen it in the cinema. But I
See,
can't
that's
remember
significant.
where.
If you can't remember the cinema, then
It's not, yeah. I have seen it before, and I was a little bit cold on it the first time. So watching it this time round, I definitely appreciate it more. I'm not going to say enjoy it, because this film is bleak. Like,
yeah.
is he okay? Because this came around the similar time as Prisoners, and that is also quite dark. Like, this
Are you
film
talking
is
about
dark.
Denis Villeneuve here?
I am.
Director.
Or Denis. I'm glad he's a bit lighter these days. He's kind of gone into space and sci-fi and seems to be a bit happier.
I mean, Dune's not the light heart romp, is it, though?
It's practically a rom-com compared to
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the song about the sound in this is incredible. It's very tense. It's very bleak. I mean, we've already said it, bodies in the wall. Those would be the IMDb keywords, bodies in the walls, not a rom-com.
What other films would that bring up?
I don't know. I mean, this maybe. There's a lot of bodies in those walls.
You type that. I want to see if there's any other films that come up with that catchphrase, with that keyword, bodies in the wall. Whilst
I mean, every film I can think of is a massive spoiler for that film. So
we need to be careful.
In fact, maybe I won't do that because I don't want to spoil films I may or may not have seen. So I guess on the small screen experience, you said you actually enjoyed it more, even though the soundscape must have been, I guess, weaker on the home screen. Or were you watching it with your headphones and on the laptop?
No, I mean, I was watching on TV. I think I just kind of got what it was about a bit more, and having seen some of his other films, kind of got it a bit more. And it is a little bit like, what the fuck is going on? Like, who are these people? Like, what is she doing there? What is she getting into? Who is the baddie? Who is the goodie? Oh, they're all bad. It's all really messed up. So I think watching it maybe for the first time, I was a bit like not really that engaged. What is this film? What's going on? And now, as I've matured in life, I've gone back to it and gone, oh yes, it's just about pure evil.
George, do you remember where you watched this the first time? Was this the first time you've watched this?
No, this is definitely. I think this is the second time I've watched it. First time, I've not seen this in a cinema. I saw this at home, but probably not long after it sort of came out. I couldn't. The sort of memories of Sicario kind of mixed in with Zero Dark 30, and I think they're quite, they're similar-ish films. I mean, they've got sequences that make you think of the same films, but in terms of watching it at home, I was very conscious of upsetting my neighbours and constantly going down and up on the volume on the remote.
But I think, so this is the second time I watched it. The first time was in cinema. I can't remember where it was, and I think it's more than likely Picture House Central. And confession here, I fell asleep at some point during that screening. And
how?
When I watched,
Sorry,
I was just tired. I would have been tired, and I've been looking forward to. I would have been looking forward to watching the rest of it to kind of piece together what the bits I've missed. And it seems I missed out some key pieces, or I simply don't remember them. I don't fall asleep much in the cinema. It's just something that does happen. But I remember just loving it. But then I just couldn't keep my eyes open, and these things happen. And nice warm cinema in the dark. It just happens to you. But I mean, there's a few things to pull on here. I mean, everyone talks about this being a Denis Villeneuve film, but like Tyler Sheridan, who's written this film, I was just looking at his IMDb. He's like, it's actually insane the amount of content he's pulling out at the moment. He's writing like all the Yellowstone TV shows at the moment. Hell or High Water. Hold on 1 second. Let me pull it up.
Got Wind River as well.
Yeah, Wind River. So I mean, at the moment, the Tulsa King. My God, it's just like, and the Lioness Special Ops one, Lioness as well. So he's just actually writing so much content at the moment, and it's actually quite impressive. To be honest, I don't know him that much of an actor. As an actor, he was in like Party 5 as a kid, and also he was in like Hell or High Water as well.
And he appears in Yellowstone as a recurring guest role, and it's filmed in his ranch, which is how he gets loads of money for filming. Smart.
I was just going to say, he's literally writing 10 TV shows at the same time, and they're all long episodes and they're all quite expensive. So having a ranch, sure, why not? Do you guys watch any of the other things he does, or know of him outside of acting in those bit pieces he does?
I was massively into Yellowstone last year. I watched all of it in one go, and the prequel series. I got really into it.
Something?
Yeah, you got the Harrison Ford one, and then there's the one in the 1800s as well.
And are they worth watching? Because I guess people in the UK don't watch them that much, do they? I think it's a bigger thing in the States.
They're huge in the States. In fact, I don't remember the exact statistics, but their viewing figures when they finally made it onto TV versus streaming recently were insane. And a lot of that kind of writing style is within Sicario, is also in Yellowstone. The kind of restricted, the kind of insult heavy. He's really good at an insult, is Taylor Sheridan. So what do we make of that? I guess the intro here is pretty, like you said, Charlotte, your friend maybe didn't forgive you from that intro sequence where there's bodies in the walls, there's explosions, going from really quite quiet and muted, understated, till like, holy shit, what the hell's happening in this TV show? I think it's quite, that entrance, that opening sequence has stuck with me, even though I fell asleep at some point. But that opening sequence, and also the car crossing the border, the cars crossing the border as a slow kind of chase thing happening. And also just Roger Deakins, man. I was just like, you just watching, you think, wow, who's shot this? And then afterwards I was like, yeah, it's Deakins, fine. Makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. But yeah, the opening sequence, any thoughts on that?
Oh, brutal. Like, absolutely. It really, I can't believe that I had forgotten about it. But in some ways I'm kind of happy because it was so surprising. It's like so shocking and horrible to watch. It's a really, sort of explosive way to start a movie.
Literally.
I think actually probably quite literally. I think I would maybe, well, actually I think that maybe the border crossing is probably the best thing in the movie, the thing that I remember the most. But yeah, great opener.
Charlotte, what did your friend say after? Has she forgiven you yet?
Does she trust your recommendations now, or is she burned?
We don't really talk anymore, but that's unrelated to Sicario.
Oh no!
It's not Sicario's fault. It's a great film.
It's John Bernthal's fault, isn't it? Well, I mean, that's one thing. Does John Bernthal, does he ever play a good guy? I was thinking he's always plays a wrong one, doesn't he?
He was in this sitcom that got cancelled after like 14 episodes years ago, and it was meant to be like the next big thing. I think it's called The Class or something like it. It's about a friend's reunion, and he's a lovely man in that.
That's probably why it was
really
cancelled.
lovely.
Like,
it stayed
does
with
he
me.
turn bad? Does he turn bad? When's he going to turn bad? Oh, he's good. We don't want that. We can have him like good at the start, but he's going to turn bad. Yeah, that's his vibe.
I think you can have him as like a protective force of someone, but he's got to be happy killing, or like just a really bad guy, just through his core. Because I didn't remember. I don't think I fell asleep at this point. I just stopped saying I fell asleep to it. But I didn't remember John Bernthal. In fact, I don't think I knew who he was at this point. Although I must have seen The Walking Dead by this point. But when he came on the screen this time, I was like, oh, what's going on here? He's gonna do something.
Some killing.
It's really surprising as well to see Daniel Kaluuya in this. Like, this must be like one of his earliest kind of on-screen film performances.
Yeah, 100%.
I know Black Mirror was before this, but yeah,
it was in Skins as well, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. But when I saw him in this, I was like, oh, another British actor in the film from America, and like not a crappy film as well. And then it's this from this to Get Out was the next big step.
Yeah.
And I thought, watching again, I was really looking for his performance in this again, because it was early on in his career, and he steps up. I think he does a really good job in this.
Yeah, I do wish he was in it more though. I mean, the film, I think, makes you want to wish that he was in it more, because he's like the only real human connection that Emily Blunt's character has.
That Kate has.
Yeah, he's also the most normal person in it as well. Like when he kind of appears on screen, he kind of brings that like normality and reality back to it, whereas the others are just kind of so committed to what they're doing, and it's just, yeah, they're like, oh yeah, this is like a normal nice person with nothing bad going on. He's just like wants to do his job and look out for Kate and have a few beers at the end of the day.
That's kind of why I savour this film so much, is because it's such an unusual thing to have a protagonist who knows nothing. And not only that, the audience aren't made complicit with dramatic irony. We carry on knowing just as much, if not less, than her. And it just really plays out because we're desperately grabbing at straws, these little tidbits of information, trying to find out what is really going on and how much danger she's in.
Yeah, and even when you think you kind of do know what's going on, you don't really know what's going on because, like, it doesn't really reveal its cards properly at the end anyway. And when it does, you're just like, ooh. Well, that's not the right, is it? Do all of the wrongs make a right? How, there isn't, it just kind of ends with bleakness and wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, on Kate's character, I think I think that my biggest problem with the movie is, and I was jumping ahead to near towards the end now, but is when the kind of movie drops her and she kind of, there's a whole massive set piece towards the end where she's just not in it, not in either kind of the sort of the plot. You don't even see her on screen, and I think that's my biggest problem, is that she's kind of the audience surrogate for your sort of introduction to this movie, and then we kind of lose her and lose what that character means to us.
Well, with that, I was thinking about that, but that I thought the same. Was like, you haven't seen Kate for a while, but everything. I think all the actions where you don't see Kate all happen in that night, don't they?
Yeah, it's a Benicio del Toro. It kind of switches to Benicio del Toro.
His revenge, which is also the plan.
Yeah.
The signed off plan that no one really knows about, that has been signed off. That
I think that's part of my kind of like question as well, is like, hold on. So the US government via some agency seems to be quite happy with getting Benicio on board so it can go do some killing because that's going to stop the drugs apparently. And Kate's there because there needs to be some kind of sanctioned patsy. And it's like, okay, fine. I mean,
she's literally only there because she is an FBI agent, and that her presence makes it just about technically legal for for the CIA to kind of carry out those operations. And we are meant to kind of feel her loss, I think, in her disappearing. But I don't know. I missed Emily Blunt and sort of wish we got to understand her character a bit more, like why she was still wanting to be a part of this.
She's like the conscience, isn't she? Like the conscience of the film. I mean, it is like irrepressibly male film. It's such a there's so many men in it, and violence, and kind of men asserting their authority in various different ways, whether that be by playing the game with getting, her on board as the technical necessity, or with like physical violence or enacting violence upon men and their families. So it's a really, really intense watch, I think. And yeah, it's just like thinking about it now, I'm just like, oh yeah, it's intense, man.
There is kind of a subgenre which you could probably look up on IMDb of female-led enforcement agencies films, and we've had a couple here. We've had 0 Dark 30, as you talked about, George, and also Silence of the Lambs, Clarice Starling.
There's Blue Steel as well. We've not had that, sadly.
But I think, each of those films, I mean, Silence of the Lambs especially, like, you're with Clarice Starling the whole way through. Yeah, I mean, I think it's even more kind of emotionally hollow in Sicario because it's, for Emily Blunt's character, it's like all for nothing. And like, at least in the other movies that you mentioned, there's a little bit of catharsis that you can feel to it.
The risk of death is very high, isn't it, for her? Like, everywhere she goes, there's like potential for her to be kidnapped or shot or tortured, or all of them.
Or nearly raped. So, I mean, the other piece is that with those other films, that the protagonists are kind of ahead of or even if it's just only slightly ahead in kind of Clarice's case, she has the agency, she knows what's going on, she's trying to find the killer. In 0 Dark 30, she's the main, like, the driving force through it all. I said it because I can't remember what the character's name is, obviously. But in this one, she's almost like just an innocent bystander who almost is like a fly in the ointment for the guys who are trying to do the bad stuff and the killing. And that's a really interesting position as well. And even when she protests, the main way that she could protest, even though she finds out that once she finds out that the only reason they can have it happen is because she's there, the main way for her to protest is to leave, and then they would have to kind of stop, wouldn't they? I would have thought. But her own energy wants to bring it forward. She wants to actually see what's happening because she has that kind of inbuilt, like, I must find out what's going on-ness to her character, which is also quite distinctive in this, I think. Josh Brolin. Any thoughts on him, guys?
Flip-flops.
This is far cry from Avengers.
From Thanos.
Yes. I mean, he has that kind of smarm to him that's like really disgusting and vile, and you know, the film's quite interesting putting him against Benicio del Toro, who is really mysterious at first, and then later is sort of compared to Josh Brolin. Some of the other characters is sort of Emily Blunt's, Kate, sort of goes to, and at one point he even rescues her, and then he turns out to be even worse, the worst of them all. And I think, the ultimate theme of this movie is you cannot trust men in any context whatsoever.
Yeah, just Brolin, I always find him quite interesting as a character. Like in Men in Black 2, was it? Or Men in Black 3?
3?
We've had him in Go on, Helen.
I wasn't.
Oh, was
I was surprised.
Charlotte?
Yeah, I was surprised that anyone's watched Men in Black 3. To be honest, that was my or cared to admit that they had.
It has Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchord in it as one of the bad guys, which is quite an interesting. Which is quite an interesting twist. Well, I like Josh Brolin, but I don't know. Has he made that leading man step at the moment? Do you think?
I mean, he's
Strong
kind of
supporting, isn't he? Like,
yeah. I mean, Old Boy was probably his main one where he was front and centre for the whole film. But I thought it was quite good here in that he was just like a haggard, kind of drunk CIA kind of guy who's just wants to get on doing what he's doing, right? I thought it was quite good, and I like the way he wore his flip flops and didn't give a shit and just sleeping on the plane, not giving a toss, and yeah, fine.
I like him in Dune, another Denis Villeneuve film.
Yeah,
Gurney Halleck, he's great in that, and Inherent Vice as well. That's an underrated performance, I think, out of his filmography. I think he's a very got a lot of humor, comedy chops and that.
Is there anything else you want to say, guys, before we head to the scores?
I mean, I think it's probably worth talking about the sequences we mentioned at the start,
Sure.
And the cinematography, and because it is a thing that I think everyone thinks about, the bridge sequence and the kind of the nighttime sequence towards the end, which I'm kind of in two minds, because I think it's technically kind of very effective. Yeah. But I think it's my main problem with all of Denis Villeneuve's films that it's very pristine and very kind of, it's, almost every shot is a painting kind of look to it. And I think a film like Sicario, it probably should be a lot messier, a lot less immaculate than what Deakins does with a lot of the shots in this. It was my same problem with, I think, Blade Runner 2049, another Villeneuve film where, the original one is very grungy, and then 2049 is very immaculate and clean, and it's I don't know, it doesn't really feel like it suits what that film was going for.
It's like when you touch something up in Photoshop and you go a bit too far with the filters. You make it it's gone too shiny, too nice, and you can't go back then. You just have to do it all like that.
I mean, it's still really gorgeous to look at. Don't get me wrong. It's especially all the night cam, I don't know what you call it, the thermal imagery and the nighttime. That's incredible technically, but I don't know. I don't think I feel the film could be a lot dirtier. Maybe the wrong word to use. Grittier. There we go.
One storyline I thought would be interesting to pull up on is the police officer piece, and you see him interacting with his kid over a couple of days. And I was like, oh, this, I can't see this ending up well.
Bleak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my God, like I know where this is going.
Yeah, that
and
subplot has never ended in like they lived happily ever after, does it?
Yeah.
No.
Like, get to know a kid and his family, get to know a guy and his family. Oh, he's going to die. That's what's going to happen. He's going to die. It's just how he's going to die. And he died harshly. Was that Benicio's first kill in this? Oh no, he killed a guy who was trying to smuggle the drugs in the just in the tunnel as well.
I mean, it's certainly not the character's first kill.
Yeah, I was going to say
not
kill
at all.
people. I mean, it's obviously a fictional story, but there kind of feels like they probably researched quite a lot of different stories around different gang members and kind of pieced some of it together with adding a bit of creative license that, it is particular areas of Mexico are extremely violent and then not really winning the war at all. And it just seems to be getting out of control. And on that cheery note...
should we head to the scores, guys?
Yes.
Hello, I'm Martin.
I'm Sam.
And every week we get together on our podcast Song by Song to discuss the music of Tom Waits.
Waits is a writer, musician and performer. You might know him from his 4 decades of songs like What's He Building in There, Downtown Train, Martha, Rain Dogs.
Or you might have seen him in films like Dracula, The Fisher King, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, or, if you made it that far, Licorice Pizza.
We're joined every week by guests from various backgrounds and disciplines, and together we take a close listen to his work, analysing the topics and tones he uses in his music, and honestly engaging with one of the most interesting voices of his generation.
Listen to our latest season or dive into our back catalogue by visiting songbysongpodcast.com or search for Song by Song in your podcatcher of choice.
So welcome to the Flixwatcher scores. All of the scores are out of 5. You can have decimal places if you wish, and we'll start with you, please, Charlotte, with your recommendability.
Recommendability. I mean, I kind of failed the first time round. That was before I saw it. I'm going to go for 4. I think it's got a lot of buy-in for people into crime, especially.
A lot of buy-in from who? What do you mean?
With
you mean you're ignoring your friend who said no?
There's a real market, though, for true crime, isn't there? Like, it's never been more popular. People are talking about all the podcasts they listen to and that kind of thing. And I think there's something in this film, admittedly maybe a slightly colder, less personal touch than most podcasts, but it's so compelling that I would recommend it.
George?
I would probably have to go for a 3. I am not a fan of like these sort of US militarism type films. But, it's something that is, I feel like it's still very in vogue. We still get more films like that. So potentially could recommend. I think it's one of the better ones out of those, but it's not something that I would recommend to myself or somebody who has a similar aversion to those type of like war movies.
Oh, and here's a question for you. There is the sequel to it, Sicario 2, Day of the Soldado, Dia del Soldado. Has anyone watched that or have any interest in watching that?
No.
Charlotte?
I knew it was being made, but the blunt character doesn't exist at all, and it's very much kind of an extension of Benicio del Toro's character, and I was just a bit like, ooh, I'm not sure whether I want more of what he brings to the table.
I went to the DVD launch for that. It was in Camden and a Mexican bar, and there was a mariachi band and loads of food and alcohol and nothing to do with the film at all. So I have never seen it because...
Well, you had too much tequila? Why?
It wasn't screened and I didn't get a copy of the DVD.
Okay. Oh, no.
Oh, wow. But did you have a good time, though?
Oh, yeah, it was amazing.
Was that in the market?
Yeah, the restaurant was just off the market by the river. Okay. Canal, apologies. I was like, water.
Buy some water. Yeah, I've not seen it. And again, I was like, maybe I'll watch it at some point. But also, if I don't. So, Helen, your recommendability.
Yeah, so I'm going to give it a solid 4 as well. I think if this is your bag, then you're probably going to really enjoy it. But as for all the kind of reasons that we've also discussed, it's not going to be for everyone. And it's not like one of those where you're like, oh, think I'll watch Sicario. Have a nice night in. Watch a film I love. It's not really got that vibe. So I think if you're new to Denis Villeneuve and you kind of like discovered him like with Dune or with Blade Runner and you want to go back and see what he was doing before, then I think you should absolutely watch it. But I think if you've probably had the chance to watch it and not watched it for various reasons, I'm not sure what might convince you to do otherwise.
Do a double bill with Prisoners and a real good time.
Yeah, I mean, these are no one's favourite films, are they? But I mean, it's come back with Blade Runner. I think a lot of people love Blade Runner 49, some don't. A lot of people love Arrival.
Yeah.
Definitely one of my favourite films. Not sure how often I'll rewatch it though.
My favourite.
Because also that has some dark edges to it where you're kind of like, nah, no. Dune, I think, is where he probably will get a really wide audience, I guess. Or has got a really wide audience.
Yeah, people are waiting for the number 2. Waiting.
Well, that was all writer strike, actor strike nonsense, which has now been sorted out, hasn't it? So I would imagine it'll be first quarter next year. Anyway, I'm not a film scheduler. I'm going to go for, 3.6 on this. Definitely watch it. I think anytime Deakins is holding the camera, I think you should try and watch the film because it will be pretty. But there are some bleakness in it. And also, I think the plot, it's not convoluted, but it is complex. And I think you have to be like ready to watch it and tell people it. Get ready to get a bit involved in it to get the most out of it. So 3.6 repeat viewing score. Charlotte.
I hadn't seen this film since that infamous cinema visit, and that's one of the reasons I picked it for this. Is because I've been itching to rewatch it, as I love Arrival, with June coming up again. I'm going to go for 3 for this. I will watch it again at some point, but it's not like I'm going to rush to go see it immediately.
What were you hoping to get from this viewing that you didn't get from the first one?
What, from seeing it at the cinema? I think it was like kind of Helen touched upon, is it's got a really unique rhythm to it, that inaccessibility of plot, the kind of obscure. Once I was comfortable in that rhythm, I really embraced it watching it this time. George, repeat viewing score.
I think I probably have to give it, I'll be generous and give it a 2. It's a film that I would happily never rewatch again. And partly because it's not my kind of cup of tea anyway. I do have problems with the film, but also just because it is intended to be nasty and brutal, and it's not something that makes me itching to kind of rewatch it. I've seen it twice now. I think that's enough.
Are there any? I mean, this isn't a war film, but it's kind of that kind of outlay, isn't it? Are there any kind of war films or these kind of films that people enjoy watching time and time again? Because
I mean, I watched Dunkirk 3 times in cinemas, which is actually a film I do really love. I don't hate all kind of war movies, but I do think I kind of agree with that Truffaut quote, whatever he said about war movies, that all war movies, to some extent, are pro-war movies. And sometimes I struggle with kind of the political context that the films are kind of operating within. So a lot of like older war movies with a lot of more distance, I find it easier to watch. But ones that are dealing with kind of the here and now, I'm like, I don't know. I find it harder to engage with.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, I can't think. I went straight to like Saving Private Ryan, and I'm like, I've seen it twice. Will I watch that again? I'm not sure what context I will do. I can't imagine the person who will watch like Schindler's List multiple times, even like 0.30.
Oh God.
Even 0.30 is a bit light in some places, but it's still massively like horrific and horrible in other places, right? So I'm just trying to think if there's anything like that. I mean, that.
If so, Tropic Thunder would be my answer.
Repeat viewing score, Helen.
So, yeah, likewise with you, Charlotte. I hadn't seen this since I definitely did see it at cinema, even though I can't quite remember which one it was. And having seen his other films since then, and I was like, oh, maybe I do need to give this another chance. So I was glad you picked it. And yeah, likewise, I definitely got it more this time, and having various things kind of like flash back in my memory. I was like, oh, okay, this is this makes a bit more sense now. So I think, I don't know if I'm going to watch it again. I find maybe I've got all that I've got out of it, but for me, it was really good for me to watch it again, and I kind of came at it. I got different things from it this time, so I'm going to give it 3.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go for 2 and a bit. I think I'll watch it every kind of 10 years. That kind of cadence.
Exactly, like in the diary.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the date today? 21st of November as we record this. 2033 November, around Thanksgiving, Black Friday time. I might pop this on, waiting for my Black Friday deals to come through the post. So you said 3.5, sorry, Helen?
Yeah.
I'll match in 3.5. I'll watch it again, but not rush to it. Small screen score. Interesting one, this one going to be. Charlotte?
I think I'm going to go for 4 for this. I think it still works. It's just not as impressive.
George?
I'm going to have to go with a 2. I think I probably would have got more out of this had I been able to watch it at a cinema, instead of spending half the time very anxious about the volume and how much it was affecting my neighbours and stuff. I still think it looked really, really good, but I think there's an element of it which demands your kind of total sort of sensory attention to it, that you can only get in a cinema, I think, to some extent.
Okay. So what was your score, sorry?
2.
Helen?
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit, but it's Jóhann Jóhannsson. He also did Arrival and Prisoners as well, doing the score and the extremely loud bits that seem to come out of nowhere and add to the unbearableness of the tension. So I think for kind of the audio, watching it on the big screen would obviously be preferred, or with really good stereo. But that cozy cinema environment may invite you to a nap. So it's a risky thing to do, maybe. So I'm also going to give it a 4. I obviously got more this time watching it because I could focus in a bit more, but I think the sound deserves to be seen, heard, big.
I'm going to go for 3. I know I fell asleep in the cinema and talked about it. But I was really enjoying it there, and I think it's a Deakins film. It's great in the cinema, and as Helen said, Jojo, his scores are always on point, and I think just to be kind of immersed in it in the cinema, I think made more sense for me versus I was watching it sometimes on the iPad and transferred to the big screen later on in the day, my TV. I mean, so. And I think the cinema is the place for this film, certainly. 3, engagement score. Charlotte?
5. I think of it as like the film 4 effect. If it was on film 4, like at 9:30, I'm channel hopping, I'm going to finish watching it. I have no doubt. Like I would with Goodfellas, anything like that. It will grip me from any sort of point in it, I think.
Well, that's just how film 4, they know what to do, don't they? They know how to select films for people.
Yeah.
George?
I go for a 4. I think it's a film that it's like a car crash in a good way. Well, in a technically good way. It is a film which it's I'm trying to find a way to kind of be nice to the film, but also, it's not my kind of film, but it's a film that is very gripping, and you can't look away from sort of the horrors it presents, and it presents it very early on, and it only gets kind of worse from there. So yeah, I would not be able to kind of switch it off, but I probably wouldn't want to switch it on in the first place.
Helen?
Yeah, so you need to pay attention, otherwise you're going to be completely lost, because you're not going to know why she's being shot by someone who's meant to be on her own team. Stuff like that, you're like, what just happened? And I don't think I'd really understood what had happened first time watching it. And I also kind of had to reread the Wikipedia page after to make sure that I got everything, because it's just a bit like, okay, so that was what? It's like, oh, okay, yeah. So I think I'll actually go for a 5 as well, because you do need to pay attention. You can't be checking your emails at the same time. You just won't know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm going to go for 4.5. I might check the Wikipedia page after this episode and recording, actually, just to check where I'm at, to make sure I did understand everything. And that gives an overall score of 3.63125. Decent. Sorry, Helen, did we get any tweets?
We didn't, I'm afraid, but would you like to play higher or lower with the other films of Denis Villeneuve that we've reviewed so far?
Yep, sure.
So we've done Blade Runner, Prisoners, and Arrival. Does anyone want to kind of guess where they think this falls in the lineup we've got?
Lower than Arrival.
Yeah, lower than Arrival. And I'd probably say lower than Blade Runner, but maybe above Prisoners.
Oh, so you got it right. So Arrival is the top with 4.37. And then we've got Prisoners with 3.93. And then we've got this with, what was that, 3.63?
Yeah.
So Blade Runner was 3.62, which I can only guess that the small screen for that was very, very low. And we all went, this needs to be seen on the big screen. So it comes in between Blade Runner.
I'll give you the exact scores of Blade Runner. So recommendability overall 3.875. Repeat viewing was quite low at 3.275. Small screen score low, 3.1 overall, and engagement was pretty high at 4.2. So it was, people don't want to watch it again, and people want to watch it in the cinema screen. So yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed Blade Runner 2049 more on rewatch. So yeah.
So we're wrong, is what you're saying.
I mean, in comparability with Sicario, maybe, yeah.
So, yeah. Charlotte, George, can you tell us where we can find you guys online and say goodbye to the listeners?
You can find me at Sometimes Movies on Twitter and on Instagram. Bye.
You can find me at G_Woody on the site formerly known as Twitter.
It's still known as Twitter. It will always be known as Twitter. Guys, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk about bodies and cavities. No, sorry, that's not right.
Oh my God.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're at FlixWatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty, mighty tunes and Rockwood Audio's editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell them Flixwatcher sent you.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.